So, imagine thousands of fans, right? They're headbanging to this massive barrage of heavy metal guitar.
Oh, yeah, just a wall of sound.
Exactly. But now imagine that mosh pit is happening right inside a pristine 2,000-year-old Roman amphitheater.
It's such a wild mental image.
It really is. And that is exactly what history looks like in Tunisia today. Welcome to a brand new deep dive. We're unpacking a really fascinating stack of sources today, covering Tunisia's architectural history, their traditional music, and these epic storytellers.
And we're going to move fast today.
Oh, absolutely. High energy, totally free of fluff. We want to get straight to the core of how this country operates because, you know, it isn't some static museum of history where you have to like whisper and look at artifacts behind thick glass.
Right. It's the exact opposite.
Yeah, it's this vibrant ecosystem where ancient ruins and traditional beats are actively being remixed by each new generation.
It completely flips the traditional script on how we view heritage, honestly. Yeah. If you want to understand how a culture gets to the point where they're, playing heavy metal inside ancient monuments, you first have to look at the physical stage that culture is built upon.
The literal stone and mortar.
Exactly. The architectural history of Tunisia is arguably this ultimate masterclass in human adaptation.
Yeah.
They didn't just build monuments and leave them. They continuously layered new cultures directly over the old ones.
Okay, let's start with that timeline then, because looking through the sources, it stretches all the way back to antiquity. You have these Punic rock burial chambers, known as Hawanet.
Right.
And they were carved directly into the cliff sides. But then the Romans arrived and just engineered this massive infrastructure. I mean, the amphitheater of El Jem held 35,000 people.
That's staggering.
And the Zagon Aqueduct, it moved water an astonishing 132 kilometers from the mountains all the way to Carthage. But the thing that really catches my eye are the Roman villas at Villa Regia.
Oh, the underground ones.
Yeah. The sources note they built the lower levels of these homes entirely underground. And I just kept thinking, why go through the massive effort of excavating down into the earth? Like, why not just build up?
Well, it essentially comes down to thermal mass, and just basic survival. The Roman elites in North Africa were dealing with a really harsh, arid climate.
Right, those scorching summer temperatures.
Exactly. So by excavating downward, they leveraged the Earth's ambient temperature. The ground acts as a natural insulator, right? So those subterranean rooms remain naturally air-conditioned year-round.
Like an early eco-friendly smart home.
Totally. And what's fascinating here is that you see this exact same environmental engineering centuries later with the Berber populations in the south.
Oh, in Chinini, right.
Yeah, in places like Chinini, the Berbers built these troglodyte dwellings stacked directly into the mountainside. So you have two totally different eras, two different cultures, but they ingeniously solved the exact same problem using the very landscapes that threatened them.
I have to say, it's easy to look at a timeline like the Phoenicians, the Romans, the Berbers, and view it as just a graveyard of sequential empires. But it actually seems much more like architectural sampling in a hip-hop track.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Right, like a modern music producer will take a 1970s soul sample and drop a massive 808 drum beat under it to make it hit harder for a club today. It feels like Tunisia does that with its buildings. They take a Roman foundation or an ancient technique and just build the next era right on top of it.
That is the perfect way to visualize it. It's this dynamic of layering rather than erasing. And you see this sampling mechanism perfectly in the Islamic and Ottoman eras.
Okay, how so?
Well, you have coastal fortresses, the Ravets, in Sousse and Monastir for defense. But inland, you have the Medinas. And these were brilliantly engineered to balance dense community living with strict privacy.
Oh, the houses built tightly together around central courtyards.
Right. But the real genius is in the windows. They use something called Musharabi screens.
The sources mention those. They're these intricate wooden lattice screens on the exterior windows. But I couldn't quite wrap my head around it. How exactly does a wooden lattice provide privacy? Like, if there are holes in the wood for me to look out, why can't people on the street just look right back in?
It's a brilliant manipulation of light differential.
Okay.
So the interior of the house is shaded and dark, while the Tunisian street outside is incredibly bright. The tightly angled wooden slats of the Musharabi block the direct glare of the sun, but they still allow the breeze to flow through.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, because human eyes adjust to the ambient light, the person inside the dark room can easily see out into the bright street. But anyone on the street trying to look in just sees dark shadows.
Wow.
It gives the residents privacy without isolation.
That is a phenomenal piece of analog engineering. And this architectural layering, it just keeps going. You add the Ottoman influence, like the 18th century Palace of the Rose with its Andalusian gardens.
Beautiful spaces.
And then the French colonial period gives us the St. Louis Cathedral in Carthage, which intentionally mixes Byzantine and Moorish styles. And then fast forward to 1973, and you get the Hôtel du Lac in Tunis, which is quite literally a futuristic inverted concrete pyramid.
It really is. It's wider at the top than the bottom, which, again, was a functional choice as much as the stylistic one. The inverted pyramid design minimized the building's footprint on the muddy ground near the lake, but it maximized the number of premium rooms at the top.
So we have this incredibly diverse, physically layered stage. But what actually happens inside these spaces? Because the sources are very clear that these aren't just empty landmarks. The physical spaces are hosting the festivals and the music that bind the community together today.
Exactly. They don't just rope off their heritage sites with velvet ropes, they activate them. The international festivals of Carthage and Daga aren't just held near ancient Roman amphitheaters. The stages are built right inside the ruins.
Wait, right inside?
Literally inside. You have global artists coming to perform in spaces constructed millennia ago.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here for a second, because when I read that they hold the Mediterranean Guitar Festival in Tunis and they're bringing in heavy metal guitars, my first instinct is that they're going to physically damage the sites. Like, isn't pumping heavy metal bass through an ancient Carthaginian ruin a massive risk to the heritage?
It's a valid concern. And acoustic engineers do have to carefully manage the decibel levels and frequencies to avoid structural resonance.
Right, you don't want the stones vibrating apart.
Exactly.
Right.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture, the broader cultural philosophy here outweighs the risk. Think about it. If you treat a ruin as this untouchable, fragile relic, the local youth will eventually just ignore it.
It just becomes background noise.
Yeah. But by playing heavy metal in a Roman amphitheater, you strip the ruin of its untouchable museum status. You force it to be a living participant in today's culture.
That makes total sense. You're giving the building a job to do in the modern era. And it's not just rock music either. The sheer variety of these festivals is staggering.
Oh, for sure.
You have the Sahara Festival down in Duz, bringing the desert alive with camel racing and military horseback riding. Then you have the Lag Biomer pilgrimage, where the Jewish community travels to the ancient Lagriba synagogue in Jerba. And the actual music at these events is constantly fusing the old and the new, right?
Very much so. Take the Ray genre. It originated in Algeria, but it's massive in Tunisia. It's this deliberate fusion of traditional North African folk music with Western synthesizers and drum machines.
Oh, cool.
Or look at Mezwed music. It's purely driven by traditional bagpipes, flutes, and hand drums. And its entire acoustic purpose is just to generate an overwhelming sense of joy. It's specifically played to drive that high energy at weddings and massive celebrations.
Which naturally leads to the dancing. The sources kept bringing up the Dabka dance at these events, but it doesn't sound like people just dancing individually in a massive crowd. It's a very specific, coordinated movement.
Yeah, the Dabka is a crucial mechanism of social cohesion. It's not just a visual spectacle. The dancers form a circle or a line, and they literally lock arms with their neighbors, and then they stomp the ground in unison.
Wow.
Think about the psychological impact of that. You are physically linking yourself to your community, creating an unbroken human chain.
And the unified stomping, it acts as a collective heartbeat.
Exactly. It's an auditory and physical manifestation of unity and survival for the community.
Okay, so the architecture gives the culture a physical body, and these massive festivals and synchronized dances act as the heartbeat, bringing everyone together in the moment.
Right.
But when the heavy metal concert ends or the Dabka circle breaks up and everyone goes home, how does the culture actually transmit its deeper moral codes? Like, how do lessons survive when the music stops?
That is where the storytellers step in. If you want to transmit complex moral codes across generations without textbooks, you need a highly specialized vehicle. In Tunisia, those vehicles are the traditional bards known as the Evdawis.
The sources describe these men holding court in bustling public spaces, right? Markets, cafes, hammams, but they aren't just standing up and telling quick 5-minute anecdotes.
Oh, no, not at all.
They are reciting massive, sprawling epics. The most famous one mentioned is the Sirat Bani Halal, which recounts the historical migration of a Bedouin tribe in the 11th century. And the sources say this poem is nearly 1 million verses long.
1 million.
1 million. If this is an oral tradition, how on earth did a bard memorize 1 million verses without the story completely morphing from town to town?
It requires an incredible feat of mental architecture. They relied on strict rhythmic structures, repetitive stanzas, and musical cadences.
Oh, so the music helps the memory.
Exactly. The melody and the rhyme scheme act as a mnemonic memory palace. If a bard forgot a line, the strict rhythm of the poem would practically force the correct next word into his mouth. These epics, like the Sirat Bani Halal, took days to recount. Yeah, they're essentially the Arab equivalent of the Iliad. Families would gather in their finest clothes, eating couscous, absolutely captivated as the bard navigated through years of famine, seductresses, and tribal warfare.
And they had these incredibly vivid characters, too. Like, the sources detail the story of a hero named Ali who fought with a double-pointed sky-fallen sword called Zulfikar.
Yes.
And his main enemy was a monster called the Ras El Ghul. Now, is the Ras El Ghul just a generic boogeyman designed to scare children into behaving?
No, it serves a much deeper psychological function. The Ghul is a pre-Islamic figure. But in the North African storytelling tradition, it's often depicted with somewhat human features, sometimes as a woman with wild hair. The Ras El Ghul represents the absolute darkest societal taboos.
Like what?
Most specifically, cannibalism.
Cannibalism? Wait, really?
Yes. Remember, we're talking about epics dealing with massive migrations and years of brutal famine. The threat of starvation was very real.
Oh.
The societal fear of what people might do to survive was palpable. So by taking the ultimate sin of cannibalism and projecting it onto an external, terrifying monster like the Ras El Ghul, the storyteller helps the society process that trauma.
It externalizes the taboo.
Exactly. It makes it something the hero can literally strike down with a sword.
That is fascinating. The monster is just a mechanism for processing societal trauma. But there's a logistical detail in the sources I want to clarify. You mentioned these professional bards performed in cafes. But historically, cafes were strictly men-only spaces, right?
They were, yes.
So did women just not participate in this transmission of culture?
Oh, the tradition absolutely did not bypass women. While the professional public sphere was male-dominated, women built a parallel and arguably more intimate mechanism for preserving the culture.
Okay, how did they do that?
Because they were excluded from the cafes, they kept the oral traditions fiercely alive inside the home. The sources affectionately refer to them as the savvy aunties.
I love that. The savvy aunties.
Right. Within the family unit, the women would naturally designate whoever was the most skilled storyteller among the mothers or grandmothers to be the unofficial fidawiya. They passed the moral codes and the cultural identity down through generations of women, literally right at the kitchen table.
That is so cool, this underground kitchen table storytelling circuit. But obviously, society modernizes. The 1960s brought the gramophone, the radio, and television to Tunisia. People started watching football matches in the cafes instead of listening to a bard recite poetry for 3 days.
Naturally.
So the Fidawi had to adapt, just like the architecture did.
Exactly. And the pioneer of that adaptation was a journalist named Abdelaziz El Aroui, universally known as Baba Aroui. In the mid-20th century, he realized that to save the art form, he had to change the medium.
So he moved it to broadcasting.
He did. He moved the Fidawi tradition to the radio and television. He broke away from the traditional wool robes, opting for a sharp suit and a tall Ottoman-style felt hat. And most importantly, he mastered the acoustics of the radio.
Right, because when you're in a cafe, you have hand gestures and eye contact to read the room, like a stand-up comedian managing a crowd. On the radio, you just have your voice.
Exactly. On the radio, silence is terrifying for a broadcaster. But Baba Aroui weaponized the pause.
He weaponized it.
Yeah, he would pause right before the climax of a story, just letting the tension build in living rooms across the entire country.
The sources mention families practically huddled around the radio during Ramadan to hear his morality tales. There's one story about a woman who marries a lion.
Oh, that's a classic one.
Yeah, she complains to her mother about the lion's terrible breath, completely unaware the lion is listening outside the window. Later, the lion calmly asks her to strike him with an axe.
Which she does.
Right, she wounds him. Time passes, and the lion tells her that the physical scar from the axe has fully healed, but the invisible scar from her insulting his breath never will. And then, as a consequence, he eats her.
It is a brutally direct lesson about the enduring damage of spoken words. But what Baba Aroui really proved was that the medium could evolve from the Medina to the radio broadcast without losing an ounce of its cultural impact.
Which brings us to the ultimate modern evolution, because today the sources highlight a storyteller named Hamouda Elias, who operates a YouTube channel called Forgotten Tunisian Stories.
He has hundreds of thousands of subscribers.
Yeah. He tells these ancient tales from memory stories about bride kidnappings or people falling into the underworld, and he intentionally keeps the visual editing to a bare minimum so his audience is forced to just listen to his voice.
And in doing so, he's managed to create this massive, highly engaged, and incredibly respectful community in his comments section. It basically acts as a digital version of the traditional cafe.
But I have to ask, what does this all mean? Doesn't moving a deeply intimate, in-person oral tradition to a YouTube comment section fundamentally destroy what it means to be a fdawi? Like when you digitize it, doesn't it lose its soul?
Well, this raises an important question. And honestly, it's the exact same debate as playing heavy metal in the Roman ruins. Are you damaging it or are you keeping it alive?
Right.
The fdawi's have always served one core function. They act as a mirror to society. Modern bards, whether it's Hamouda Elias on YouTube, or theatrical artists like Hayden Boreal, who is currently incorporating modern Black African migrant stories into his repertoire, they are simply holding up a mirror to the Tunisia that exists today.
Evolving with the time.
Exactly. Elias even actively edits out older, inherently racist tropes from the traditional tales because they just don't align with modern morals anymore. The medium changes, the stage changes, but the core function helping a society process its identity remains exactly the same.
That is the perfect through line. I mean, from excavating underground Roman villas to streaming thousand-year-old morality tales on YouTube, Tunisia proves that true preservation isn't about freezing something in time.
Not at all.
Because if you just lock history behind glass, it becomes irrelevant. Real preservation is about making your heritage useful to the present moment.
Exactly. By continuously sampling and remixing their past, they ensure it actually has a future.
Which leaves you, listening right now, with a really interesting question to mull over. Think about the informal storytellers in your own life. You know, those savvy aunties or the grandfathers holding court at the holiday dinner table.
Everyone has them.
They do. And if the epic 1 million verse poems of Tunisia started as simple, local legends trying to make sense of a harsh world, what everyday family stories are you telling right now? Because if you keep telling them, those very stories might just become the epic mythology for your descendants 100 years from now. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking questions, keep looking past the surface, and keep exploring the world around you.